What's up guys, I'm Dean and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm sorry that I haven't posted it in a while. I've had a busy month or two. I've had lots of stuff going on, but I'm here and I'm back on YouTube to make more content because I really enjoy making this stuff for you and I like it that you guys watch it. I think this is my first video since hitting 1,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for that. It really means the world. I'm just going to keep working on my YouTube stuff now because I enjoy it. As I just said, I'm just repeating the same thing over and over again. Anyway, today I thought I'd do a video on quite a big topic of my top 10 comic book movies. I feel like this is obviously a big list because most of the stuff I talk about is comic book movies, and I wrote a list of my 10 favourites. This will change quite frequently, and there are some new additions to it. So let's just jump into it, and we can discuss all of it. In 10th place, we have Avengers Infinity War, one of the few MCU movies on this list. There aren't many, but I really love Avengers Infinity War, and I think it works amazingly as a crossover because it does such a good job of showcasing all these different characters, giving them all a moment to shine and giving us cool action and cool moments of different characters meeting each other for the first time, while still not feeling overwhelming or being bogged down by lore or characters or anything like that. And it does that quite simply by putting Thanos as the main character. I think Thanos is the main character and kind of the protagonist of this movie in a weird way because of the journey his character goes on throughout the movie. It's like he is, you know, he is like the protagonist. Yeah, that's what I mean to say. And I think it has really strong emotional moments as well. Loki's death is sad. Vision's death gets me every time, and that snap at the end, the ending of Infinity War, is absolutely incredible. It's absolutely shocking and just unbelievable. It's got some great action sequences too, like the Battle of Wakanda or the Battle on Titan. It's probably the highlight for me, and Gamora's death works really well, and just there was so many elements of it, and it seems like it shouldn't work, but it does really work. So that movie is in 10th place. In 9th place, we have Spider-Man, the first Sam Raimi one from 2002. I actually do prefer this to Spider-Man 2, believe it or not, and I think that's just because I love Willem Dafoe as the villain, and this kind of leans into who Spider-Man is more. I've nothing against Spider-Man 2, obviously I love that movie as well. That would be in the top 15, probably, Spider-Man 2. But there you go, you know, I just prefer Spider-Man. I think Willem Dafoe does a great job as the villain. I think there are really cool moments of where, like the scene at Thanksgiving dinner, the audience is the only people that know all the information, and every character is hiding something, and there's really interesting conflict there. This movie has amazing music, one of the best soundtracks of a comic book movie ever, or a superhero movie, and yeah, that all works amazingly. I think it does the origin story well. Because we all know the origin story now, so watching it we're a bit bored by it, but I think it's got some really interesting elements, and him becoming Spider-Man and the death of Uncle Ben, all that works so well for me here, and him becoming Spider-Man is also it is done so well because you have the moment on the bridge where he's got to save MJ or the bus full of kids. That's a great moment, and moments like that really solidifies why Sam Raimi's great at the superhero stuff for me, because his world he's built here for the Spider-Man trilogy does feel comic booky and out of the place, and out of the place, what does that even mean? But like, it feels comic booky in such a great way. It feels unrealistic in a great way, if that makes sense. In 8th place is the oldest movie on this list, and that is Superman 1978. Christopher Reeve is my favourite Superman, probably just because of Superman, and Superman 2, especially the Donner cut, because it just perfectly nails who Superman is. And yes, it's cheesy, and yes, it's got elements that don't completely work, but just this version of Superman is so well done, and the music is so iconic and so great, and it's got some great, like, just the costume, and it just, what I love about it is it's a Superman story that isn't afraid to be Superman. It full leans on into this cheese and the hopeful nature of this character, and I think really sums up well what this character is. Superman is one of my favourite superheroes, and this is my favourite Superman movie because I like Zack Snyder's Superman, but it is too gritty and dark, and he mopes around too much and just stands there silently, when Superman should be a joyful and a hopeful character. I want to see more of that in the future of DC movies. But for the meantime, I've got this great movie in 8th place, so what have I got to complain about? In 7th place, I have Spider-Man No Way Home. This is a tricky one because so much of what this movie does great is just the fan service, and that's not a complaint at all. It does fan service amazingly. It gives us Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back at it, and that just works so great for me. I just obviously I loved that, and it wasn't just that. I know I said it leans on fan service a lot, but it actually had a really great arc for Tom Holland's Peter. I think Aunt May's death was handled really well, and it elevated a lot of these villains. I think a big worry for me was that they were gonna, because there were so many villains they had to do, that they were gonna be reduced to caricatures and they weren't gonna be interesting. And that is true for, I would say, Electro, Sandman, and Lizard, especially those latter two. But Dr. Octopus and especially Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin are better in this movie than they were in the Raimi trilogy, in my opinion. And that's no complaint about the Raimi trilogy. I just think this movie did such a good job of exploring these characters and whether they should be fixed, especially Willem Dafoe's Goblin. It's so good here. It's got some great action scenes, the highlight being in the apartment building of Goblin versus Peter Parker, and it had some great just moments of pure nerd joy between Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland. And I just love seeing Andrew Garfield again and getting redemption for that character because he's my favourite Spider-Man, and they just nailed it so well, and all the villains coming together worked. And yes, the first hour or so is a bit slow. That's my one complaint about the movie. It doesn't fully pick up its pace, but I loved it. I really did love it, and it was everything I wanted it to be. Just we gotta see Charlie Cox in it as well. I know I'm talking about how fan service isn't the most important thing in these movies, but when it's done well, it is a great thing. So there you go, Spider-Man No Way Home. In 6th place, we have the first animated movie on this list, The Incredibles. The Incredibles is probably my favourite Pixar movie, and when I was younger, I would have said it's my favourite movie ever, so there is a lot of nostalgia around this movie for me, but on a rewatch, I know it's not just nostalgia that I love about this movie, because it is really well made. Number one, amazing score. Probably my second favourite score of any superhero movie. I know that's a big claim, but it's so iconic and so recognisable. And it does what I want from a Fantastic Four film, because I love the Fantastic Four. They're some of my favourite superheroes ever. But the movies have never got them right, and it's never got this family dynamic right. But this movie gets the family dynamic right of them bickering and fighting with each other while trying to save the world, and the way they relate to each other, and each of them have such a strong personality. And I think Syndrome's a great villain, and the action is solid, and Frozone is great. And just the arc that Mr. Incredible goes on in this movie is really, really interesting. And it does tackle some heavy themes as well, which I actually really appreciate. There's so much to love about this movie. And if you haven't seen it in a while, I could not recommend it enough. I have very little to complain about this movie because I think the humour is there, I think the action is there, I think the animation is there, and the voice performances are there. It is kind of like a parody of a superhero film in the way it subverts the genre in certain aspects, which Incredibles 2 doesn't really follow up on, and that's my complaint about that movie. But we're not here to talk about that. I might rank all Pixar movies soon. We'll see. But there you go. That's it. That is my thoughts on The Incredibles. Now entering the top 5, in 5th place, we have James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. Spoiler alert for the next 4 movies on this list, but this is my favourite MCU movie. I think it is incredibly funny. I think the character work is so amazing. Let's just talk about the character work for a bit, actually, because I think that's the real strength of this movie. The first Avengers film is great. That's one of my favourite MCU movies, and it does such a good job of establishing these 6 characters as the team and showing how they relate to each other. But something Guardians of the Galaxy does better than that is that we've never met any of these characters before, and fans didn't really know anything about these characters before. But the movie did such an amazing job of establishing them, establishing their flaws and their strengths and their personalities and their humour so well, and how they related to each other, just to make such an amazing team movie of these a ragtag team coming together. There are so many great scenes in this movie. The prison break, Groot's death. I really like the we're just a bunch of assholes standing in a circle scene. It's amazing, and of course, it's got a brilliant soundtrack. it's the soundtrack's great. I might prefer Guardians of the Galaxy 2 soundtrack, but it works really well here and it's really well utilised throughout the movie. James Gunn is just amazing. He's just an amazing director. He is. And this is the only James Gunn movie on the list, but he's probably my favourite comic book movie director. In fourth place, we have The Dark Knight. This one might be a bit controversial. Oh, why isn't it in first? Let's get a few things straight. Heath Ledger's performance in this movie is obviously probably the best performance in any comic book movie ever, in my opinion. And his Joker is absolutely brilliant. And the way the plot unfolds around this character with all his schemes and the build-up to the ending of the two ships, I think all of that works brilliantly. But it's just not an amazing Batman story. I have issues with Christian Bale's Batman overall. I'm not particularly keen on it, but I still really love this movie. Obviously I love it. It's my fourth favourite superhero movie ever, and these elements are just so... Yeah, I do really like Two-Face in this movie as well, and I think it is just Heath Ledger's performance which makes this movie so great, because if it wasn't for that, I think I would prefer Batman Begins, because I feel like that's a more solid Batman story, because I have issues with Christian Bale's Batman, as I just said, but this movie is great. I'll stop complaining about it. It's just Heath Ledger that really carries this movie. He's amazing in the role, obviously. In third place, we have Logan. What a powerful and emotional conclusion to Hugh Jackman's time as Wolverine. I think this movie is so dramatic and it is shot so well. This is one of the most beautiful superhero movies ever because it thinks about its cinema. And I know this sounds dumb, but a lot of superhero movies don't really think about their cinematography as they go into it and just shoot it very conventionally, and there's not a lot of beauty there, but Logan really does have some beauty. It's got some phenomenal performances, especially Sir Patrick Stewart. Hugh Jackman in it is great as well. The action is absolutely brutal and everything you want to see from the Wolverine, and it worked really well as an emotional finale to this character. I think it tied it up all very well while existing in its own world, which was also very clever. It kind of had this Western style, which I really appreciated. I love Westerns, and I think it worked well here, although they could have lent into it more. Not complaining, this is my third favourite superhero movie ever. You know, I love that element of it. It was really, really solid. I just had to stop myself from yawning, if you're wondering what that was. I'm not bored, I promise. Let's move into second place. Second place is The Batman. This might be recency bias, and I might change this, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. This movie is incredible. When I said earlier on about most superhero movies don't think about cinematography, this movie is the exception. This is the most, or the second best looking superhero movie ever. Best is first place in my opinion. But there are so many amazing shots here of Batman walking away from the crashed Batmobile, moments like that. It's just absolutely incredible cinematography. And even the shots which are there just for continuity, the boring shots, there's still something interesting going on in most of them, just to keep the viewer hooked. Robert Pattinson does an incredible job as playing Batman. I would have liked to see more Bruce Wayne, but I understand why we don't see more of him. I think he did an amazing job of just being threatening, and the arc his character went on was really great and really strong, and it's probably the strongest Batman story from a Batman point of view, not looking at villains. But the Riddler was great. Colin Farrell as the Penguin was incredible, and I really like John Turturro as Falcone as well. Catwoman was also great. I wasn't really expecting that, but her story worked really well, and she had a great arc in this movie that wasn't really... She wasn't being driven by Batman's story, and Batman wasn't being driven by her story, which I really appreciated. Just stuff like that, all round, worked really, really well, and I just really enjoyed this. The music... probably my favourite score in any superhero movie ever. It goes hard, and the sound design throughout is incredible. It's got some amazing action. Gotham looks like its own place. Gotham looks like a real city and somewhere different to Weaver. It's not just Chicago renamed. It looks incredible. It looks so gothic, and that opening of all the criminals running away from the shadows just is probably my second favourite scene in any comic book movie ever. It was incredible. I'm gonna watch it a third time. Into first place, if you've watched me for any length of time, I think you could be able to guess what this is pretty easily. It is Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. My third or second favourite movie ever. I've got a post for it just there. And I think this movie is truly a work of art. The animation is unlike anything I've ever seen before. This might be the most beautiful movie I've ever seen. The leap of faith scene at the end is my favourite scene in any movie ever. It's got a great soundtrack. Miles's arc is great. Peter B. Parker's arc is great. It's got Kingpin is a great villain. He's compelling and he's threatening. And Peter Parker's death near the start of the movie is incredible. And just, it's funny. It's really funny. Spider-Man Noir is a highlight for me. And Spider-Gwen works really well. And the just the beauty of it. I'm yawning again. I apologise. I'm tired, okay? It's nothing to do with me being bored about talking to you guys, I promise. Just Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is probably, one of my favourite movies ever because of the soundtrack and the characters and the music and the animation and the action and the comedy. It all just rolls together into one, I want to say, perfect film. I think there's so many great elements here, and I think there's so much to love about it, and I really, really do love it. I watch this movie so much, probably more than any superhero movie, and there is good reason for that, because it is truly a work of art. It is incredible. It is mwah. Anyway, guys, that rounds off our top 10 list. Let me know yours down below and what movies you think I missed. Please remember to like, please remember to comment, and please remember to subscribe. I don't know what. Anyway, I'll see you next time for when I get back to posting on YouTube, because it's going to be more frequently now. I promise. Bye.